I'm Sandeep Gupta from NESA Illumination Technologies. I'm taking care of CSR department in NESA. We welcome you all on behalf of NESA and TIE Ahmedabad. In these tough times, NGOs in different parts of the country have responded swiftly, helping in every way they can, from distributing rations to cooked meal to migrants to ensure that senior citizens have medicines. So when we clap for our front-end service providers, we normally forget to applaud the NGOs. Let us do it at this platform. A big clap for NGOs. I know a lot of you are on mute, so but let us applaud NGOs from this platform. So this event is organized by NESA and TIE Ahmedabad. So let me introduce them briefly. NESA Illumination Technologies was founded by alumni of IIT and IIM with a mission to promote green energy solutions. NESA has created exceptionally reliable and cost-effective solutions in solar and LED industry. It has presence across India and in many countries of Africa and Middle East. Our esteemed clients include names like Adani, ONGC, HDFC Bank, Siemens, Jindal, Aditya Birla Group, the Indian government, and governments in Africa and Middle East. NESA has been pioneer in solar street light in India, which is in line with its vision of powering greener tomorrow. With thousands of villages still lacking electricity, NESA working with CSR corporates to light them up. NESA's work in CSR space in last 2 years has lit up lives in more than 500 villages across India by installing more than 20,000 solar street lights, ensuring better livelihood and business for the locals. NESA has also done more than 200 installations in other solar products, including rooftop solar and agricultural solar pump. NESA has also developed an innovative light product for street vendors, where NESA is working along with Ahmedabad Municipal Corporation for vegetable vendors. So let me brief about TIE. The Indus Entrepreneurs, popularly known as TIE, is a global not-for-profit network of entrepreneurs and professionals dedicated to the advancement of entrepreneurship. TIE provides a platform for mentoring, networking, and education to budding entrepreneurs and professionals. TIE Ahmedabad is working towards building an ecosystem for startups in Ahmedabad. They are also working a lot with social entrepreneurs. Coming back to NGOs, a significant amount of support to NGOs comes from corporates. This support increased significantly after 2014, when the government made it mandatory for large corporates to spend 2% of their profit on social development. Thus, these CSR funds were estimated to be around 14,000 crores annually. However, in the context of current COVID-19, will corporate continue to provide this support, given that a lot of money is moving towards tackling the crisis? From directly supporting COVID-19 relief to donating to PM Care Fund or Chief Minister Relief Fund, a large part of fund has come from CSR that would have normally gone to other social activities. This will naturally impact NGOs and CSR industry. So we all here are keen to know what would be the scenario this year. So let me go to the panelists here. We would like to welcome the Elite panel to the event. We thank them for coming in and joining us and agree to share the insights with us. So here what we will do, we will have a round of introduction of the panelists. So first I will like Mr. Salim Ahmed from Electronics Sector Skills Council of India to introduce himself. Mr. Salim.
Yeah, hi, good afternoon all, and thank you very much for giving me the honor of inviting me to this discussion of eminent panelists. I belong to the Electronics Sector Skill Council of India. We are a council under the Ministry of Skill Development. promoted by the National Skill Development Corporation and collectively promoted by the 6 industry associations who collectively represent the electronics sector. So generally activities encompass, we are the apex body to create the structured mechanism for skill-based training under the National Skill Qualification Framework. We are the agency who has been designated to impart skilling, which we do through our network of training partners. And we are an assessment and certification authority under the National Skill Qualification Framework. So we have a huge infrastructure and a huge reach across the country. We have over 4,000 centers for 160 qualification packs encompassing the across the landscape of the electronics sector in India. And we have so far skilled over 1 million candidates and somehow put them into either wage employment or self-employment. We are also endeavoring to undertake a lot of skill development and livelihood projects under the CSR. And so far, a lot of eminent organizations have been engaged with us. We have worked with ONGC, we have worked with NEC, we have worked with Voltas, Whirlpool, and a host of other organizations across the country to create livelihoods. In the current situation of the pandemic, we see a big opportunity and a big requirement, in fact, across the country for livelihoods being created. A lot of migrant workers who have been displaced, and the whole COVID has completely disrupted not only the economy, but every aspect of life in the country, be it, the general health of the people, be it general well-being. There's a complete migrant people across the country. So in the light of new challenge, I feel the CSR is aptly placed. It's a corporate social responsibility. It is the responsibility of every person, in fact, in the country who's living in society. And I think in the current pandemic, both the challenges and the opportunities emerge.
Thank you, Mr. Salim. Now I would like Mr. B.K. Kakade from BEF to introduce himself.
Hello, good evening, all of you. Welcome to this session, and thank you for organizing this session. I think it is very important and at this juncture, very, very critical to reflect upon CSR and CSR-induced programs. So thank you for organizing this. Thanks, NESA. And I also welcome my other colleagues on board and also the participants. Well, I represent an organization which has national presence. BIAF Development Research Foundation has been working across at present 12 states of India, covering more than 350 districts for last 5 decades. The major thrust area of BIAF has been providing livelihood opportunity for the rural poor, primarily the rural poor, whether it is landless, small and marginal landholders, or livestock keepers. These opportunities of rural employment, whether it is self-employment or employment around any value chains, is basically through primarily livestock, dairy husbandry, and allied sectors. Second major thrust area is the tribal areas, tribal geographies, mainly again through the farm-based livelihoods and livestock-based livelihoods. And third one is the combination of the landscape-based approach, actually treating the entire landscape, improving the environment, and also ensuring the livelihood of people who are residing in these particular settings. Along with this, we have been focusing on different value chains around farming and also around the women-focused programs, the gender equality, the programs to accelerate the rural economy through small enterprises. So these are a broad spectrum of our activities. And as most of my NGO colleagues are aware, our presence is over almost 1 lakh villages across the country. Hello, thank you. Am I audible?
Yes.
Thank you. Hello. If I may continue for half a minute or so, let me also reflect upon what has happened during this pandemic. When there was sudden lockdown and when things started with abrupt kind of impacts, So we very rapidly conducted a survey across more than 2,000 villages in our operational areas in 8 states of India. So a very green picture has emerged, and I think this was tip of the iceberg when we surveyed in April. This was like in 2,000 plus villages, there were almost 51,000 migrants, and 1 lakh of the migrants as well as the locals had no land. So they are landless, they are assetless, and their total livelihood is dependent on the wages, whether it is wages within the village or in the nearby cities or far away from their native places. The another important observation was that the families were lacking appropriate documents. Like for example, even the ration cards, although over 90% of the people have been benefited through the PDS system for their survival, but some of the people who are stranded or some of the people who don't have even the ration cards, the situation of these people were very, very pathetic. And fortunately, whether it is government, whether it is and the third sector, the NGOs, they come for the rescue for most of the places and for most of the people. So that was very positive and good thing. So with this, I leave it to moderator. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Kakare. Now I would like Mr. Banerjee, Dev Malaya Banerjee, who is a ex-ONGC employee and currently senior consultant, to introduce himself.
Good afternoon, respected panelists, invitees, Mr. Gupta, and your team from NESA Illuminations. I thank you for inviting me for this panel discussion. A brief introduction. I have been working in ONGC for the last 31 years, and recently I have moved out from ONGC and I have joined a private corporate.
Adit, can you unmute Mr. Banerjee? I think he is on mute.
Oh, nice. Yeah. After working in ONGC for 31 years, I am now moved out and joined a corporate house in the private sector and also associated in various CSR consultancy related jobs. Basically, I am a geophysicist from IIT Dhanbad and then did my MBA and did my CSR professional degree from Indian Institute of Corporate Affairs. Have been associated with the top-notch CSR activities of ONGC for the last 7-8 years, covering all items of Schedule 7, and have been involved in major projects driven by the government of India, as well as ONGC as a proactive CSR. I have been associated with CSR, so I'll be very happy to share whatever knowledge, experience I have with the MS and the invitees. Thank you, Guptaji. Thank you, Sandeep.
Yeah. Thank you, sir, for joining us. Now I would like to ask Mr. Nitin from NITI to introduce himself. Adit, can you unmute Mr. Nitin?
Yeah, hello everyone, and thanks to Nisha and Tai to invite me in this useful panel discussion today. Myself Nitin from NESCO. NESCO is a diversified group of companies based at Bombay. You might have heard Bombay Exhibition Center It's India's largest exhibition space in Western Bombay. Nowadays, the whole exhibition center is turned in a shelter home. That's beauty of a CSR. We can show and immediately action. More than 10,000 migrant labor are taking shelter. So we have established incubation center in Anand. We have registered a Section 8 company, NESCO Foundation for Innovation and Development. And like a TIE, we are also now a private incubator in this field and nurturing startups and entrepreneurs in Anand. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Sanjay. So before starting our discussion, I would like Ms. Pyali from TIE to say 2 words. Pyali, are you there?
Thank you. I was just waiting for to be unmuted, right? Thank you, Sandeep. I think you had already introduced, what TIE does, and thank you for that. It was done wonderfully. With the core objective of TIE, where we always are entrepreneurship. There are social entrepreneurs as well with whom we work. We do projects also many times where there are CSR funds, and which probably has projects around that helps entrepreneurs in their journey, right, from the nurturing program to many other things. So from that perspective, this is an extremely important subject for us as well. And I'm extremely thankful to all the panelists who have agreed to join today, because this is going to be absolutely interesting and insightful discussion, and a lot of takeaways, I think, for each and everyone who has joined here, including organizations like TIE and NISA. Thank you, Sandeep.
Thank you. So, without wasting any further time, I would like to start the discussion. So, my first question would go to Mr. Salim. Mr. Salim, what is the role of CSR in fight against COVID-19?
So, I think
your opinion.
Mentioned in the beginning that COVID actually is a major disruptive. It's a major a disrupting event across the complete socio-economic canvas. And specifically when you talk about the CSR, so I think the responsibility of all the organizations across the board who are engaged in all the activities which have been prescribed as the CSR activities becomes more important, because COVID is going to affect the people across, whether it's poverty alleviation or whether it's hunger, all those things are emerging. And together, the whole ecosystem has to address these challenges which are emerging because of COVID. But me, specifically coming from the skill development and livelihood background, would just like to speak more on the livelihood. So with the COVID, we see a big opportunity of new job roles and new upskilling and skilling being emerging. And since the electronic ecosystem is going to be very vibrant, and there is a huge possibility of a new world emerging in which everything is going to be addressed through a contactless and a remote mechanism. So wherever there's a remote mechanism, there would be play of electronics, and a lot of people for manufacture, for servicing, for maintenance and operational of these equipment would be required, and there's a huge livelihood opportunity. For example, I would quote here is that the traditional institutionalized equipment, which were earlier only restricted to the hospitals, like ventilators or like multi-parameters, they could be now developed for on a smaller size for homes. So there could be home ventilators, there could be home equipment, and a lot of the whole world is going to run through a concept of contactless and a remote system. Wherever there is a contactless and a remote system, there is going to be a huge influx of electronic gadgets and new age gadgetry, and also for manufacturing. There'll be a lot of robotics which will be controlled through a remote mechanism. So I feel there's a huge opportunity for upskilling, and especially the migrant labor who's been involved in manufacturing, especially on the electronic side. they could be quickly upskilled to undertake new tasks and challenges, and new livelihoods can be created. Because this COVID is mainly, impacting the employability, it's impacting the livelihoods, it's impacting the industry. So those challenges we have to see and ensure that the livelihoods of people can be gotten back with minimal effort. So from livelihood side, I think there is a big challenge uh, which the COVID brings, and definitely a challenge also as an opportunity.
Very interesting point. So coming to our connecting question, I would like to go to Mr. Mr. Nitin, what are the different avenues where CSR fund can help in fight against COVID-19? So we are seeing a lot of CSR funds going towards COVID-19. So what are those avenues like?
Yeah, Sandeep. Actually, see if Mr. Bharat rightly said that they had a very good survey, largest survey they have done, and I have gone through the paper also. So there are some needs that should be addressed during and post COVID also. Now coming to the various avenue and what exactly CSR mean to fight against this COVID, it's very important to understand. Many CSR has been started, taken steps, short-term challenges and opportunity. They have turned their hotels, converted in hospitals. So like that also we have some example. On 28th March 2020, Ministry of Corporate Affairs, they unveiled with one GR that you can have the CSR fund for PM CARES and CM Relief Fund. So immediately a large chunk of money goes to that part also for PM CARES fund and CM Relief funds. But secondly, to deliver needed healthcare, medical supplies, groceries, and staples around the world. That also was the initiative by many CSRs they have taken consider. Some manufacturers are configuring a production to make healthcare equipment for the first time. So that is also a good avenue. What I mean to convey to group today, there are some emerging sectors even post-COVID also, like a quality education. We should consider these sustainable development goals. All these 17 important goals are there. They're all CSR, they have clubbed the CSR guideline to comply these SDGs. So coming to that quality education, many NGOs are working, but this is the very emerging and very innovation is required in the part of quality education. That is sustainable development goal number 4. So education should be, community oriented, and the community should be educational oriented. So we have to create a learning society. So now this is a time to make good projects and proposals on this front. And some PPP model also would be worked out together with CSR, government and NGOs and private sectors together. Another very important area that is of health and wellness. That is talked in SDG 3 also. Many CSR, they have, earmarked their money for preventive care, treatment, mental wellness, program for corona warriors, especially for doctor, nurses, Safai Karmachari. So this is the right time to understand the opportunity and put and divert the money, divert the CSR stuff for kind of emerging sector. Another very important area will be come out after this post-COVID, that is of industrial innovation. Like I said that, there is a need to boost up startups, because right now whatever existing company, they are asking question, what can be done? They have to make changes. These are the stuff they can give to them. So, innovative ideas should be turned. So many CSR, they have started such kind of incubation center. So CSR also permit such kind of CSR spending for the innovation, promotion, startup, ecosystem, everything. So, to make a good PPE, mask, sanitizer, if any good innovations are there, so this sector will be immersed soon after this COVID. And definitely, as Mr. Banerjee rightly said, a livelihood, is a very, a very vast sector that should get, that is the avenue that many CSR has to put money, because there are a big chunk of migrant laborers are there, vulnerable groups are there. So to give not only, opportunity, but to nurture them for their at least to get a good livelihood. So many skill development programs, many innovations, ideas, and another livelihood option would be emerged. Yeah, Sandeep.
Yeah, so I can see livelihood has been the common point coming up in two answers. So my next question would go to Mr. Banerjee. Sir, what will happen to the existing CSR programs if focus goes towards CSR focus goes towards COVID-19? So the commitments which we have got from CSR funds in last few years, what would happen to those programs? Sir, you have to unmute it.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, sir. Sir, you are again mute it, so you can unmute it. We can hear you. Yes, sir.
Hello. Yeah, sorry.
Yes, sir.
Mm. The question is, what do we do with the CSR funds which we have already thought of
Right, sir.
after post-COVID? Now, here there are 3 or 4 aspects which are coming in. You go to any corporate, they have a short CSR projects, they have a long-term CSR projects. Any project which is running long-term and is in the mid-level or in an advanced level, the money is already parked in the project. So those projects will not be affected. There are projects which have been recommended by Government of India as well as by the state governments for implementation to various corporates through various NGOs or directly, which may or may not be linked to post-COVID scenario, which are already linked to post-COVID scenario. Government will automatically push you. Now, taking all the CSR fund available at this moment with the corporates, taking the last 3 years PAT is approximately 16,000 crores. Now, every corporate, every company has a strategy plan for which they have to work out at the beginning of the year and get it passed through their board. That's the rule, mandatory thumb rule for executing your projects. Now, since we are already in the beginning of the year and most of these decisions now taken for the funds available, which has not been parked, to post it in COVID related interventions or post COVID related interventions. So if you really go into the picture where there is limited fund available, maybe a corporate may have only 10 crores, 15 crores, and they have already parked it. They might find it a little difficult, but they have to do some permutation combination of putting some projects in abeyance and giving priority to whatever requirements which comes up to them. When we discuss over the various points, these pictures will slowly get clear what I mean to say. Thank you.
Sure, sir. Thank you so much. So coming to Mr. Bharat Kakade, sir, you are from the implementer side. So can you highlight how what is your expectations from CSR corporates, how they can balance between COVID-19 and other causes?
Thank you for this question. It's very interesting, as far as consider this and which is likely to emerge. very quickly after this, or even during the pandemic, there is nothing like COVID and post-COVID, or pandemic and post-pandemic impact. What has impacted most is health and livelihood. As rightly said by Mr. Nitin, the livelihood, whether it is urban people or rural people, whether it is resourceless or resourceful people, livelihood is going to be the major concern for everyone. As we see now, the reverse migrants, how pathetic the situation is, whether they are natives or whether they are stranded elsewhere. Both the places, they are facing problem of their livelihood or their survival rather. And more than that, even the situation is so worst that they, in some places, they are also not having enough for their, fulfilling their thirst and hunger. So what I consider is, whether it is people working at grassroots like us, or whether it is people supporting that initiative, I think we all have to work on these two fronts. One is immediate relief measures, and I'm very happy to contribute and share that many CSR partners of BIO, we work almost with around 80 to 90 CSR partners across country. So many of them, they came forward, joined hands with BIO to address immediate needs of the people in the rural areas particularly. This is one area which is already being addressed by both of these entities, people in implementation role and people who are supporting that implementation role, government and CSR partners. As far as a very particular answer to your question, how do you balance between two? So one straightforward is the focus of COVID funding. So COVID funding has two aspects. One is immediate impact on health of the people, awareness requirements, sensitization, even supporting for health requirements of the people is very immediate and quick help, which is required today and maybe over a period of next few months. The other major impact is on livelihood, as I said. So all the programs in rural areas particularly need to really bring in livelihood as the major thrust, particularly livelihood for the people who have come back to their villages. There are two streams which can absorb this major chunk of people who have gone back to their villages. One is agriculture, and second is agriculture allied services, which are secondary agriculture related services or which are tertiary agriculture related services. So one need to refocus on financing these aspects so that these people can be absorbed for their livelihood within the native places, at least for next few months, and I foresee even 1 year or even more than that. So all of us, we have to really reorient and look at a very different paradigm for working towards creating employment opportunities for this major chunk of people. It's not going to be only for a short period of 2 months, 3 months. It is not going to be only the NRGS. As we see last year and years before that, NRGS employment creation was less than 50 days per person. Even with refocusing, with increased wages, is not going to serve the purpose of creating employment for these huge of people. More than 4 crores of people, additional people, more than 4 crores of additional families. We need to realize that how actors can absorb these people along with the existing people who are dependent on agriculture, who are dependent on livestock, not only dairy livestock, but also the small ruminants and poultry. So this is, I think, the area of concern for all of us, whether the implementers, small or big, or the CSR who are going to finance for this. The major emphasis has to be creating the local employment opportunities.
Thank you so much. Connecting to the same question, I would like to go to Mr. Banerjee.
Yeah.
So, sir, So I think there is need of lot of innovations post COVID, and technology should play a very important role. So do you see a role of technology coming into CSR field, and what are the segments where technology can come in, and CSR funds can help it?
Yes, there are quite a lot of opportunities. Now, going by what Mr. Salim as well as Nitin mentioned, number one, uh, quite a lot of migrants have gone back. Now, we do not know in 6 months, 1 year time from now, how many of them will come back to from where they had gone back. Even though, taking example of any locality where you are, we take Surat. Take an example of Surat where diamond cutting and all those things, a lot of migrant workers are involved. Now they have gone back. Now these workers are experienced. Definitely most of them will come back, but there may be a quite a big chunk which may not come back. Now they are trained in diamond cutting. They are not trained in some other activities like agriculture or etc. because they have got accustomed to the diamond business. Now, innovative techniques so that they can directly be involved either with agriculture or with employment generation or at very rudimentary rural level. Option one. Option two, the major focus I would like to mention is on immunity development, which will take a which will come in the forefront over the next couple of years from now. Vaccine will take some time to come. Even then vaccine comes, getting that vaccine for all of us, that will also take some time. So maybe who are getting good food, good nutrition, there is only 20 to 30% of the populace. But what about the others? So NGOs, corporates, government, societies, foundations, they have to identify small locations and find out how they can execute this type of projects. Related to health and nutrition, so take out some immunization related issues which can actually increase the immunity. Third, which most of the technology people we are into digital education. Now digital education, what they have done is mostly going through the various classes where this is taught in the schools. So that is not the end of the story. What you have to do is to merge education with entertainment. So basically edu entertainment, which has to be given a focus to everyone, all the students, mainly in the rural areas. Studying will not make, so you have to have a mixture of study, quiz, debates, games, pictures, all these things. These NGOs and other bodies have to think, find out. There are very good agencies, very good companies which have data with them, ready-made data. So you have to get in touch with these companies and propagate yourself. So that the more you propagate, the more you touch upon different students at rural level. Next is MSMEs have been given a leeway. The number of MSMEs operating will be much more. Now you go to any deep into the rural areas, maybe Chhattisgarh, maybe into the aspirational districts like Dahod, Narmada, somewhere in Maharashtra, all these places. Lot of MSMEs related to cottage industries will be available. Now in these places, power or energy availability directly. Now what can be done in these locations is to so that they get renewable or alternate sources of energy, maybe through which is much cheaper and also a clean energy. Now, these type of things, the projects have to be woven. COVID has affected. This is the facility which has been offered. So we tie up hand holding that each and every project carries meaning and has a sustained impact. Not that we have to do a project for the sake of doing. We have to do a project which can sustain. The number of beneficiaries are specifically the beneficiaries has to be below poverty line. It's not that we go for anybody and everybody just for the sake of CSR. No, it has to focus on the downtrodden, poor, migrants, whatever you say. But the projects have to be done very, very focused manner. And
Right.
here the NGOs play a big role. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. So, sir, in your last point, you mentioned that renewable energy would play a major role, and NESA is into this segment. So, this is of our immediate interest. We have also developed one product which may be helpful in COVID situation. Because we think that sharing of the resources would stop in these cases, and we have seen that street lights. Street vendors are using lights which are on which they are taking on rent. So daily they are taking these lamps from some vendors and giving them back. So we have developed a light which they can own and can be used by themselves. So I would like to play a video for that. That is a 1 minute video. Adit, can you play that video?
The number of vegetable vendors and street vendors is very large in India. While there have been many government schemes benefiting economically weaker sections of Indian society, this section of vegetable vendors has been largely overlooked. The current lighting system, which earns livelihood for them, has many drawbacks. From low light, large weight to harmful glare on eyes. These drawbacks are severe and harmful. Moreover, they pay a chunk of their daily earnings as rent for these lights. To solve all of this, introducing NESA Vegetable Vendor Light, Ujjwal. Ujjwal gives uniform distribution of light for a clearer view of items, helping vendors immensely in their sales. Moreover, no glare on eyes and no lead pollutant make it a very healthy for eyes and environment friendly. Other benefits include inbuilt battery of more than 4 hours of backup and 5 years of life, very lightweight, dust and waterproof. Most importantly, now vegetable vendors can own this asset rather than paying perennial rentals, thus saving a part of their daily earnings. NESA, lighting up miracles. NESA Illumination Technologies Private Limited.
With this video, I would like to go to Mr. Salim. Mr. Salim, I would like to know your opinion on such products, such innovative products where the sharing can be stopped, and how renewable energy, like Mr. Banerjee said, can in rural
Right now,
areas.
we are in a stage of a complete capsule of skill development and creating livelihoods. So we have already developed a learning management system in which the skill can be imparted online through a person like sitting anywhere, and also the assessment certification is now an online and completely in an environment of non-contact basis. Now these kind of products are actually I would say that you had a good vision to develop these activity like these kind of products. They would be envisioned like going further because especially in the villages, such kind of products they are in great requirement, they're in great need, and a lot of migrant workers who are now going back, they would be changing their vocation and try to become small little vendors of selling fruits and vegetables, and like definitely these kind of products will be of a great demand there. But we would like to add here, apart from this, a person who is a person in the village or at the macro level can be trained, to sell, to maintain, to repair such equipment, and a wider bouquet of products can be developed which are more rural centric and village centric. Some things we are considering is you have these home lights, or we have home lights, and it can be extended into solar cookers, then there could be solar pumps, for water pumps, especially on the farm and villages, and also to lighting up, at a small little remote, small little which they keep their implements and agriculture. I being from a rural and a very agriculture background, I really do appreciate. I think with this, the whole economy now moving into the rural, and it's a very important that we create immediate opportunities for the migrant workers to be engaged into some vocations so that they can earn some livelihoods. And also such innovation is immediately required to address the impending requirements and need of the rural sector. So I think it's a very novel idea, and definitely we as the enablers of skilling and trying to develop some kind of course around it, upskill workers into like such products. So it will definitely benefit the rural landscape of the country.
Thank you so much, Salim. Coming to Mr. Nitin Makwan. Sir, what do NGOs and sustainability? So someone who is working in the field which are not directly related to COVID-19. So how these NGOs can sustain in these tough times?
Yeah, Sandeep. Actually, this is a different kind of disaster. Earlier we had, earthquake in Kutch, so we had, and then after rehabilitation, so that were the integration part together. But this is definitely, a very rigid, and I know how we can fight with this kind of pandemic. The thing is, the message to my NGO friends is, make some innovative ideas. Suppose make a social business or social enterprise mode, some projects. Suppose there will be a new like compliance of social distance. Now you can, start one e-retail or, a group of people together you can serve. So that would be online basket kind of thing, grains and everything. So such kind of innovative idea can be converted in a project. So earlier what we were doing only just, social welfare kind of things. But nowadays it won't work. We should think on commercial way of thinking, like you can make a social enterprise, and this enterprise sustain their own existence, and slowly they can work like a model of farmer producers organization. So same thing, this kind of organization we can promote. BIF is doing marvelous work in this field, but the thing is how to get a sustain. Such kind of pandemic will come, but at that time again we have to build the same. No, this kind of institution only will help out to reach the rural. Otherwise what happened, the urban people, they are getting good message and everything, but it is very big challenge for NGOs to deal with the rural people, to explain them what is a social distance, and again cash transaction, all this stuff. So automatically make a burden on them. So I think we should think on that line. Let's start a social business or social enterprise mode project, so that all vulnerable groups come and they can get a livelihood. Recently, Mr. Banerjee was mentioning about this IT. There is a transformation in existing infrastructure. So we should cope up with this. Online classes, digital classes, everything will now change. We are working from home. What is that? We were not habituated with webinar. It's a new group of seminar. Now such kind of many NGOs are there, they already understand, but there are good NGOs, grassroots NGOs working in field, but they are not habituated with such kind of technology. So this is the right time to cope up such kind of things. So this is a message to NGO friends also, that make a concrete proposal on how we can strengthen a social enterprise so they can serve to the villages. Migrant people, group of migrant peoples, they can have some idea, work on that, take a benefit of good agency, and link this product to the market. So innovations only, I think now a word is remain. So we can ourselves sustain, because there is a problem for corporate also. They have to look after the employees, wellness of employees. They have to, I don't know how employees they can join, resume up after that also, because all are worried about their own health. Now the corporate, they are worrying how we can make a social distance, how they cannot, get this disease. So such kind of, another thing that is of Ayurveda. Yes, we have to think, and Ayush guideline, everything is there, but NGOs can, whatever experience is there, but we have to go beyond this for this. PM sir also mentioned about this, to be a vocal for a local. So motivate the local products, a local scenario at the global level. So automatically this change. Now there is not required of such kind of proposal. Sustainable long-term impact is required to fight against such kind of pandemic. Yes, Sandeep.
Vocal for local is the mantra for today. So I would like to go to Mr. Bharat Kakade. Sir, so the same question I would like to ask you, because you are from now the NGO side. So what is your advice to NGOs? How can they sustain themselves? And I also have a second question, that most of the NGOs and most of our discussion is focused on rural. So what about urban areas? How much CSR would be happening in urban areas?
Okay.
Yeah.
In fact, this is very pertinent question to those who and very rightly said by Mr. Nitin that we have to reorient and refocus ourselves for funding as well as for addressing the emerging need of people. Needs are going to be already with demographic changes in our very different, and we cannot go with conventional approach of the welfare measures for the community. So we need to have a two-pronged approach. One is now there are emerging needs, emerging priorities for the people. We have to address very quickly those, joining hands with PPP approach. Government has to be there. Without government, the scale at which this problem has in the impacted people cannot be addressed. With corporates, the specialty of corporate funding, which we see while working with several corporates and in different geographies, the specialty is that there is flexibility in program funding. The government supported programs, they are at a scale, but it operates on scheme basis or on programmatic basis. Here in case of corporate supported or CSR supported program, one can design program appropriate to the people of that geography and appropriate to the local ecology or environment. So with all this, the challenges, present challenges and present opportunities. Present challenges, as I already mentioned, present opportunities, which Mr. Nitin has already mentioned, the digital platforms for educating people, the digital platforms for connecting people, digital platforms for marketing, working on value chains, not only just working to the extent of improving the productivity or production at farm level or farm-based production. More important today that this production which is enhanced has to be taken to the consumer directly. And there are ways, now there are already several demonstrations and several pilots in our country that with FPOs, farmer producer companies or organizations, the produce from farm is available at the doorsteps of people in urban areas. So the connect between urban and rural can happen with this refocused working on value chains using e-platforms. Now there are several facilities available. Uberization of facilities for the supply chains. Uberization of providing employment opportunities for the additional population which is available in the villages through reverse migrants and through the local landless people or who are dependent on wages. Now there is already, as we know, the agriculture is practiced through mechanization. Most of the agriculture in country today. So the bullock driven power is no more in existence. in majority of the places where there is a command area and there are plains, entire agriculture is mechanized. Now this mechanization, not everybody can afford. There has to be some way of making these services available by the groups or by the enterprises, which can emerge very quickly in the villages. And we have excellent experience of working with women group, providing this custom hiring sales through women group, making the services of farm implements women group. And now it is not going to be a surprise that women can drive tractor, they can do everything whatever the male folks used to do in past. So the charge of agriculture, smart agriculture. As Mr. Nitin already mentioned, SDGs with the smart way of doing it. It is not going to be only the hard work which will survive the whole implementing fraternity in the country. It is going to be smart work which will have to be delivered, which will have to sustain, and it is only the economic returns which the beneficiaries are going to get it, and on which the implementers are going to survive, or they are going to also make business out of it. So we all have to keep in mind these two aspects. One is the agriculture production, engaging many more people in the agriculture through productivity enhancement. With smart agriculture again, addressing the refocused way of doing it. SDGs, that is climate change induced future needs, or whether it is the commitments of country to address the SDGs through whatever means we can, through agriculture and through livestock. So that is one. Number two is the secondary agriculture we are into. Pre-production and post-production. Pre-production, entire input supply chain can be handled through FPOs, and you can absorb many more people in the villages in this supply chain. The post-production, value addition or taking the product to market, these both the things will have to be addressed locally through, as I mentioned, there are several pilots in country through FPOs or through any new social enterprises.
Okay.
This is important
Okay.
in this rural sector to generate employment opportunities.
Sure, sir. Thank you so much for this answer. So this discussion is actually very interesting. So it seems that we should keep on asking questions and listening to this discussion, because but I would like to end this discussions on time, so that we can take the questions from the audience. But one last question to Mr. Salim. So sir, from your view, what are the opportunities you see in the CSR industry, and what are the challenges you see in this specific things?
As I told you, that the big challenge is obviously the labor migrating and to creating the creation of livelihoods. That's one of the biggest challenge with this COVID is going to, obviously the health challenges, of course, there. The disease has to be fought, for which there are systems and we have medical facilities. And also a lot of CSR fund is being utilized, for protective clothing and for protective equipment. The big opportunity I personally feel, as I told you, I'm from the electronics background. A huge, equipment ecosystem is going to be created, which is going to be home centric, and the whole contactless and remote mechanism has to be created virtually for every field, be it education, be it imparting skills, be it delivery of services or products, or e-commerce. So a huge ecosystem is now going to emerge. It's going to be a parallel economy, which is going to be completely contactless and completely based on remote systems, for which a new expertise and new skills will be required. And those are not skills which are completely different from what we have now, just an addition of skills. So a little bit of upskilling can convert a lot of these migrant workers who has been displaced in the current scenario to become very useful resources and can be put to contribute to the economy. So I think a huge ecosystem is being created, but certain decisions, like obviously, as Mr. Nitin also pointed out, that the CSR, the Schedule 7 of CSR is, if you see deeply, it's quite built according to the MDGs, the Millennium Development Goals. And all the CSR funds were essentially, the purpose was to be utilized, to ensure that to be spent on the social side, so that the social face of the industry comes in front. Now, these require funds. So 16,000 crore of expected amount, which is expected this year, two things, could hamper. Going in future, maybe in years to come, the amount of spend may actually reduce because a lot of bottom line of a lot of industry will be affected. So going forward, a lot of industry, according to the parameters, they may actually be out of, the framework of, as of now, who qualify for CSR. So we may be looking at a fund reduction in CSR amount. I hope it is not true, but that's what we can anticipate. Other thing is inclusion of contribution to the PM Care. Earlier also contributions to the Prime Minister were allowed on CSR, but in the PM Care, because it's a renewed fund and it's aligned to the current epidemic, the current pandemic, a lot of PSU money may, by virtue of government affiliation, may flow into the PM Care. Also for the private people, a lot of industry may find it a little tedious, to undertake CSR projects, and may find it more convenient to just contribute and to comply with the laws to the PM Care fund. But having said that, I really hope a lot of money does flow into the traditional CSR activities, and because actually being specifically from a certain sector and a certain activity of skilling and livelihoods, and in my sector at least, I see a huge opportunity and a root possibility of rehabilitation of a large migrant community which has been displaced in this very, very sorry scenario.
Very thoughtful, Mr. Salim. Thank you. So now I would like to take some questions from the audience. So first, I would like to take some questions from the chat box. So one question is from Mr. Monal Gunjaria. So it is for Mr. Nitin, that CSR, as you spoke, that CSR supports startups. So can CSR funds be transferred to private limited startups?
Yeah. Shall I try?
Yeah.
Actually, in 135 section 7, actually to establish a private incubation center is a permittable by the Ministry of Corporate Affairs. But only thing that they have to establish a section 8 company. Okay. So section 8 company, again, they can run this activity supporting seed fund, then another fund to the startups. But they cannot invest in startup directly. Okay. If they want to invest, then again joint venture fee with SIDBI and everything is there. But private limited company is there, or any company is there. If they want to establish, support to startup, then they have to get registered with DST, and again they have to establish a section 8 company with the main object of a startup innovation support. That's the thing we did. NESCO Innovation and Foundation for Development, that section 8 company, the finance and we are implementing. So it's a part of that.
So there are some questions which are, I think, are already answered in the during the discussion. So I'm taking new questions. So Mr. Banerjee, there is one question is, can CSR project link with the government projects like NREGA and or the housing projects for the migrant?
If it follows all the norms laid down in the CSR manual of that company, which is funding the project.
Okay.
The CSR manual varies from company to company. So you have to, yes, there have been cases. I'll give you an example. Odisha cyclone. I think the location was near Puri when lot of damage happened, and CSR money was used by corporates for redeveloping the houses. Now, if the project is totally within the government funding project, no, it has to be independently done, and the beneficiaries, selection of the beneficiaries will be a very difficult task. That has to be done very judiciously, and yes, can be done, but with lot of under particular boundary conditions it has to be fulfilled.
Okay.
Thank
Sure,
you.
sir. Thank you. So one question to Mr. Bharat Kakade, ki how can CSR come to the rescue of street vendors? Mr. Bharat, are you there?
I had muted my.
Okay.
Sorry.
So question is, question is how CSR can rescue street vendors? Can street markets be designed by CSR?
Well, if you are talking about existing markets, then the question is tricky. But there can be
Yeah.
whole new setup of the market.
Okay.
CSR to connect the locals, and there is huge possibility, and already there are initiatives. BuyUp itself, our own producer organization itself, we have created a platform where the producers, farmers, they are connected with the urban housing societies. The demand is raised through the digital media, and then the required product is supplied through farmers. So this is one example. Many more products, there can be the connect between producers and the consumers. There is huge possibility of doing this, facilitating this through CSR support. And I think the corporates are much smarter, and they have more experience in the business through very innovative kind of platforms. And as I mentioned, the Uberization of whole business, connecting the consumers and the suppliers or the producers. This is going to be the future, and we have to work towards it and extend on this.
Okay. So we will take two, three more questions. So one question to Mr. Banerjee. It is by Mr. Khare. What is the future of shared resources among bottom of pyramid people? Example, shared transportation, shared mobile charging station, or any shared products, which invariably mean they would go through many physical touches. So like public transportation is very common in rural and urban both. So what is the future of these shared resources?
How can you link that with CSR?
Right. So can CSR
Cannot be
be
linked with
helpful?
CSR.
Yeah. Okay. Right. So I guess the question is ki, there are a lot of problem will be there. Like many people would not be able to use public transport. So what is the other options they would go for? So those things can be covered. No. So, right.
Maybe government funding for buying battery operated vehicles.
Yeah. Right. So
These are the places. Crowding or overcrowding in a bus and finding ways out is not CSR. Now, alternative, yes. What happens if they can't travel in a bus? You have to, government has to adds up to the funding of the individual or to the state coffer, depends. Then some you may never know, something will come up in which you can go and take loan or something for a battery operated vehicle. It can be a cycle, it can be a motorcycle, it can be a three-wheeler, anything.
Right, right, sir. Got it. So I think this answers the question.
Sandeep, I have one question,
yeah.
not suggestion.
Yeah, please.
Actually, this is to Ty. Pyali is here. So we met in one discussion in angel investment also, if I'm not wrong.
Okay.
But Ty can take, certain things for NGOs to promote a social entrepreneurship, social enterprises. So this is the right time. Actually, startup is there, but social organizations, social enterprises, how they can involve for a seed funding or to promote their social innovation. That would be a sustainable key point for the NGOs, those who are really working in the field. So it's a small suggestion to Ty also. They can organize certain discussion with interested NGOs. Really they want to do something for social enterprise thing, because it is right now it's very needed. If you take example of BioF, they have a Dhruva Vasundhara product they have in BioF Lachakdi in Navsari. I have visited. So Mr. Bharat is here. You can get the benefit how the social enterprise can convert itself a good company, corporate, and the corporate then automatically serve to the local NGO. So this is a win-win situation for all. So it's my suggestion to Ty. Yeah.
Yeah, right. So I guess Pyali got disconnected. So we will pass on your message, and we can also have an offline discussion with her sometime. Yes, thank you. So there is one last question we will be taking up. This is from Ms. Vaishali Bhutani. So Mr. Salim, if you can answer this, what kind of amendments in CSR are expected? So for example, in any new field like electronics, towards making village linking through e-commerce.
Yeah, unfortunately, there are a lot of, the CSR policy, there are certain suggestions which have been made to change. And basically, they are more towards monitoring side and more, towards the impact assessment conduction and inclusion of foreign agencies into the whole monitoring. And as of now, we do not really foresee any such amendment as far as electronics is concerned. But yes, since now electronics is going to be the buzzword in the country, so even the Prime Minister and everybody is talking about a lot of industry which is being, which is expected to be relocated from China. It's supposed to, we are trying to create an environment, of industry friendliness. That those companies, they come into India and flourish. So, and with the current pandemic, as I told, a certain system around the electronics is, is emerging. So definitely, the rural, the rural economy and the rural landscape be connected, more on the electronic side is definitely emerging. And if you have any suggestions, you can write to us. We can definitely write to the government and also seek certain benefits, for this ecosystem, which involves a lot of electronics. But yes, also in the CSR, there are certain things, which the CSR thing permits, like the setting of labs, So basically for R&D or for virtual reality, augmented reality. So the establishment of these skills, these center of excellence, which are more targeted, towards a specialized skill. So those things definitely are a part of the CSR as of now. And support in the specific labs and centers, the CSR policy does support the setting up of labs. And we are working with the IITs, setting up of these remote labs, virtual labs. So as we move forward and the importance of electronics now is being reflected in our daily life, so I'm sure with CSR policy, we can write a recommendation to the government and seek certain support for things. Very important in this time.
Thank you, Mr. Salim. So I think we all have many questions left, but there are limited. But there is limited time, so we can ask these many today. But I would request if everyone can write their questions to me. My email ID is sandeep@nesa.in, so I can direct these questions to the panelists and can get back to you. Yeah. So with this, I would like to thank all the 4 panelists who have given their valuable time to us and share such good insights, such good innovative ideas. So I think this will be very helpful to all of us and have cleared a lot of confusions in our mind. Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you so much. Wonderful being here. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you, Sandeep. Thank you, Nesa. It was a good effort by you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah, thank you,
Thank you,
Mr.
Salim.
Thank you. Stay
Thank
in
you,
touch.
Mr. Banerjee.
Stay safe till the
Thank you,
lockdown is
everybody.
there.
Yeah, thank
Thank you,
you.
Mr. Sandeep. Thank you so much. Wonderful being here.
Yeah.
And we'll be in touch.
Yeah,
Good to
bilkul,
meet
bilkul.
Thanks. Yeah.
So thanks to all the participants who were listening very patiently till now. Thank you so much. So, sir, we are ending this session now. Thank you.